Snow fell heavily over the mountain road, each flake adding to the thick white blanket that covered everything. The wind howled like a wild animal, shaking the trees and whipping against Myra's coat. She clutched her 2 children close, wrapping her thin scarf around their small bodies. Leo, her 8-year-old son, tried to keep up, but the snow was deep, and every step was a struggle. Emma, her 5-year-old daughter, was almost buried in the snow, her small boots sinking with each step. Myra's hands were numb and red from the cold, and her teeth chattered as she tried to keep moving. Their car had broken down hours ago on the steep, winding mountain road. She had tried to call for help, but the storm was so strong that the signal was gone. Mira had only one thought in her mind: keep her children alive. She had lost her husband just a year ago, and the thought of losing her children now was unbearable. She tried to stay calm, speaking softly to them. "Hold my hand, Leo." "Emma, stay close to me," Mira said. Her voice trembled slightly, but she tried to hide it from the children. She adjusted her scarf and looked around. Everything was white. The road had disappeared under the snow, and the trees around them looked like frozen giants, standing silently in the storm. Mira could barely see a few meters ahead. The children were shivering and exhausted. Leo's small hands were frozen, and Emma's cheeks were red from the wind. Mira knelt down and hugged them tightly, trying to give them some warmth. "We will be okay," she whispered, even though she was not sure herself. "We just need to keep moving." Hours passed, and the storm seemed to grow stronger. Mira could barely see the road, and every sound was swallowed by the wind. The snow fell in thick sheets, making the world look like a white desert. She had no idea how far she had walked, but her legs were sore, and her children were tired. Mira knew they needed help soon. She could not survive the night outside in this storm. Then, far ahead, she saw a light. At first, she thought it was her imagination. But the light grew brighter, and soon she could see a moving shape. A motorcycle appeared, its headlight cutting through the heavy snow. The engine's hum was loud, but it felt like music in the silent, cold world. The rider slowed as he approached them, stopping a few feet away. The man was tall and broad, wearing a leather jacket covered with patches. His helmet hid his face, but when he removed it, Mira could see a kind expression. He looked at her and the children with concern. "Are you okay?" he shouted over the wind. His voice was strong but gentle, and somehow it gave Mira a small spark of hope. Mira took a deep breath. We're stranded," she said. "Our car broke down, and we don't know what to do. We can't stay here in this storm." Her teeth chattered as she spoke. The man nodded. "I can see that. You won't survive out here for long. Come with me." Mira hesitated. She had been taught not to trust strangers, but something about the man felt different. He did not look threatening, and his voice had a calm, caring tone. She looked at her children. Leo's eyes were wide, and Emma clutched her coat tightly. Mira knew she had to make a decision quickly. The storm was too strong to stay where they were. "Okay," she said finally. "But we don't have anywhere to go." The man smiled gently. "Don't worry. You'll be safe with me." He helped them onto the motorcycle carefully. Mira held Emma in her arms, while Leo held tightly to her coat. The man, whose name she would later learn was Hank, wrapped a heavy coat around them to keep them warm. Mira felt the cold air bite at her face, but somehow it felt less frightening with Hank there. The motorcycle roared to life, and they moved slowly through the snow-covered road. Mira focused on keeping her children close, watching the light from the headlamp reflect on the snow. The wind whipped around them, but Hank guided the motorcycle carefully, avoiding obstacles and deep snow patches. The ride was long and cold, but for the first time in hours, Mira felt a small hope. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, they reached a small cabin at the edge of the forest. Smoke rose from the chimney, and warm light spilled out of the windows. Myra's heart lifted. She could feel the warmth even before stepping inside. Hank dismounted and helped Mira and the children down. "This is my place," he said. "It's not big, but you'll be safe here tonight." Myra's legs were weak from walking through the snow, and she leaned on him for support. Inside, the cabin smelled of wood and fire. The stove glowed warmly, and the walls were lined with shelves of books and small decorations. Leo and Emma ran to the stove, pressing their hands against the warmth. Mira finally allowed herself to breathe. Hank handed them blankets and cups of hot cocoa. "You can rest here. The storm will pass, and then we'll figure out what to do next." Mira looked around the cabin. It was simple, but it was warm, safe, and welcoming. For the first time in hours, she felt relief instead of fear. The children sipped their cocoa and smiled, their faces slowly returning to normal. Mira realized how lucky they were. The storm had been merciless, but somehow, they had found safety. She watched Hank quietly, noticing how calm and patient he was. He did not ask for anything in return. He simply offered help. As the night grew darker, Mira wrapped the children in blankets by the stove. She whispered stories to them, making sure they stayed calm. Outside, the storm continued, but inside the cabin, there was warmth, safety, and a small light of hope. For the first time that day, Mira allowed herself to relax. She knew the road ahead would still be difficult, but at least for now, they were safe. And somehow, with Hank there, she felt that they might survive the storm together. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside the small cabin, Mira and her children began to feel a sense of safety they had not known for hours. The warmth from the stove spread slowly through the room, chasing away the cold that had made their teeth chatter and their fingers stiff. Mira hugged her children close as they sipped the hot cocoa Hank had prepared. The chocolate warmth spread through their bodies, and their cheeks slowly returned to a healthy pink. Hank moved around the cabin calmly, stacking firewood beside the stove and checking the windows for drafts. His presence was quiet but strong. Mira watched him, noticing the careful way he handled the firewood and how gently he spoke to her children. At first glance, his leather jacket and large patches might have seemed intimidating, but now, in this warm light, he seemed like a guardian, someone who had appeared at the right moment. "I'm Hank," he said, turning to Mira. His voice was low and steady, but kind. "I live here alone. You'll be safe tonight. The storm will keep others away, but inside, it's warm." Mira nodded, feeling a mix of relief and gratitude. "Thank you," she said. "I don't know what we would have done without you." Hank shrugged lightly, as if the act of helping them was nothing extraordinary. "You just needed help. Everyone deserves that, especially kids." Leo, curious despite his tiredness, asked, "Why are you out here in a storm? Don't you get scared?" Hank chuckled softly. "I've been in many storms in my life. Some worse than this. But helping people makes even the worst storm easier to face." Emma, who had been silent and hiding behind Myra's coat, peeked out with wide eyes. "Are you scary?" she asked quietly. Hank laughed, a deep but gentle sound. He knelt down to her level and smiled. "Not at all. I may look big, but I'm not scary. As long as you're kind and brave, I'm friendly." Mira smiled, grateful for Hank's ability to make her children feel safe. They were exhausted, scared, and cold, but Hank's calm manner began to ease their fear. For the first time since the blizzard had begun, Mira allowed herself to relax, if only a little. Hank showed Mira where they could sleep for the night. A small room with 2 beds and a thick quilt awaited them. He made sure the children were settled first. Leo climbed under the blanket quickly, yawning. Emma clutched a small stuffed bear Mira had kept in her bag, pressing it to her face. Mira helped tuck them in, smoothing their hair and whispering words of comfort. "You stay here tonight," Hank said. "I'll check the fire and make sure it stays warm. You can rest." Mira nodded, feeling a mix of relief and unease. She was not used to trusting strangers, but Hank had proven his kindness in the short time they had known him. The thought that they could sleep safely for a few hours without fear was a gift she hadn't expected. After ensuring the children were settled, Hank sat down with Mira by the stove. "You've had a long day," he said. "I can't imagine how hard it must have been to walk through that storm with them." Myra's eyes filled with tears, not from sadness alone, but from relief and exhaustion. I didn't know if we would make it, she said. The storm was so strong, and I felt so helpless. I wanted to keep going, but my kids were freezing. I thought, maybe we wouldn't survive. Hank listened quietly, nodding. You were very brave, he said. It's not easy to keep calm when everything around you is so dangerous. But you did it. You didn't give up. Mira felt a small warmth in her chest, one that had nothing to do with the fire. She had feared judgment or criticism, but Hank's words were gentle, not condescending. She realized that kindness could exist even in unexpected places. The storm outside continued its relentless pace, snow piling higher with each gust of wind. Mira could hear the wind howling through the trees, but inside, the cabin felt like a world apart. Hank lit another small lamp, casting a soft golden glow across the room. The shadows of the dancing flames created a sense of calm, and for a moment, Mira almost forgot the danger they had just escaped. Leo, unable to stay still, asked Hank about the patches on his jacket. What do they mean? He asked. Are they special? Hank smiled, rubbing the back of his neck. Each patch has a story, he explained. Some remind me of where I've been, some of what I've learned. They are like memories I carry with me. Some are funny, some are lessons. But all of them remind me to help people when I can. Leo listened, fascinated. Do you ever get scared? Sometimes, Hank admitted. But fear is normal. It tells you to be careful. The important thing is not to let fear stop you from doing what's right. Emma, still shy, reached out and touched one of the smaller patches on Hank's sleeve. It's soft, she said quietly. Hank chuckled. That one's from a place I visited long ago. I like to remember good things as much as lessons. That way, life feels safer, even when it's hard. Mira watched the interaction between Hank and her children. She felt a wave of gratitude and relief. 4 hours, they had been lost, afraid, and cold. But here, in this small cabin, they were safe. Her children were smiling, laughing even, and for the first time, she could see the color returning to their cheeks. Hank's presence was steady and calm. He didn't push them to talk or act differently. He simply offered warmth, food, and a sense of protection. Mira realized that sometimes, the most important people in life are those who appear unexpectedly and stay long enough to make a difference. As night deepened, Mira tucked the children into bed once more. She stayed by the stove with Hank for a while, watching the flames dance. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, there was safety, warmth, and hope. Thank you, Mira whispered again, her voice full of emotion. You don't know what this means to us. Hank shook his head gently. I think I do. You and your children are strong. You'll be okay. Just remember to take care of each other. Mira nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The storm would not last forever, she knew, and soon they would be able to leave. But tonight, they were alive, warm, and together. That was enough. For the first time in many hours, Mira allowed herself to close her eyes and rest, knowing that they were safe. The storm outside could rage as it pleased, but inside the small cabin, there was comfort, kindness, and the beginning of hope. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside Hank's small cabin, a sense of calm had settled. The warm light of the stove made the room feel safe, and Mira could finally breathe without the heavy weight of fear pressing on her chest. Her children were slowly regaining their energy after hours of struggling through the snow. Leo, his hair damp and sticking to his forehead, sipped slowly from a warm mug of cocoa, while Emma cuddled her stuffed bear and listened to the crackling of the fire. Hank moved quietly around the cabin, preparing more cocoa and stacking firewood. There was a rhythm to his actions that felt reassuring. He did not rush or demand anything, but every movement seemed deliberate and caring. Mira observed him carefully. He looked like a man who had seen many challenges in life, yet he treated her children with patience and warmth, never raising his voice or making them feel small. Would you like some more cocoa? Hank asked, carrying a fresh pot to the table. Leo's eyes lit up. Yes, please, he said eagerly, holding his cup. Emma nodded quietly, too shy to speak but clearly happy. Mira smiled, feeling a small relief at the sight of her children's smiles. 4 hours, they had been cold, frightened, and uncertain, and now, at least for the moment, they were safe and warm. Hank poured the cocoa carefully, handing it to each of them. "Drink slowly," he advised. "It's hot, but it will warm you up faster if you sip." The children followed his advice, and soon, warmth spread through their small bodies. Mira felt a similar warmth in her chest, a mixture of relief, gratitude, and hope. She finally dared to relax, though only a little, because she knew the storm was still outside. Leo looked at Hank with curiosity. "Why do you live out here all alone?" he asked. "Aren't you lonely?" Hank smiled, settling down in a chair by the fire. "Sometimes it can be lonely," he admitted. "But I like the quiet. It gives me time to think, and to help people when I can. And tonight, I'm glad you and your sister are here." Emma, still holding her bear, whispered, "Do you have other kids?" Hank shook his head gently. "No, just me. But I've met many kids like you on the road. Some needed help, some just needed a friend. And now I get to be a friend to you too tonight." Mira watched quietly, a small smile forming on her face. She realized that Hank's kindness was genuine. He didn't ask for anything in return. He simply wanted to help them survive the storm. For the first time since the blizzard began, she felt hope bloom inside her, a feeling she had almost forgotten. Hank leaned back in his chair and gestured to the children. "Would you like me to tell some stories?" Leo's eyes widened with excitement. "Yes," he exclaimed. Emma nodded eagerly as well. Mira sat beside the stove, keeping a watchful eye on her children while Hank began his tales. "Long ago," Hank began, "I traveled to many places, and each place had its own story. Some were funny, some were strange, and some taught me lessons I never forgot." He paused, seeing the children lean closer, captivated. "One time, I helped a family whose car broke down in a storm very much like tonight's. They were scared, cold, and hungry, but we worked together to get through it. By the time the storm passed, we were stronger, and they were safe. That's what matters, the people we protect and care for." Leo listened intently, imagining himself in the story. "Did the family have kids?" he asked. "Yes," Hank said, smiling. "2 kids, just like you and your sister. They were brave and smart. And they learned that even in the worst storms, kindness can appear from unexpected places." Emma, her voice small but curious, asked, "Did they like the man who helped them?" Hank nodded. "Yes. They trusted him because he showed care and patience. And that's why I trust you to rest here tonight. You are safe because you trusted me." Mira felt a lump in her throat. She had been so worried, so scared, but Hank's words reminded her that courage and trust could appear even in the hardest moments. She smiled at her children, seeing their eyes wide with wonder as they listened to Hank's stories. 4 hours, they sat by the fire, sipping cocoa, laughing at funny parts of the tales, and quietly absorbing lessons about courage, patience, and kindness. After a while, Hank asked Leo about his favorite things. "What do you like to do?" he inquired. Leo thought for a moment. "I like to read stories," he said. "And sometimes I like to draw." Hank nodded. "That's wonderful. Reading and drawing help you see the world in new ways. You can imagine adventures even when you are stuck in one place." Emma, shy at first, added softly, "I like to play with my toys and tell stories to my bear." Hank smiled warmly. "That's perfect, Emma. Storytelling is very powerful. It helps people understand each other and stay brave, even in storms." Mira watched, amazed at how easily Hank connected with her children. His presence was steady, his patience endless. Even in the middle of the blizzard, he had created a safe space filled with warmth, laughter, and learning. For the first time in what felt like forever, Mira allowed herself to believe that they would survive this night, and perhaps even more challenges to come. Hours passed quietly. The storm outside continued, but the cabin remained a sanctuary. Mira felt herself relaxing, finally able to sit down and let the fire's warmth seep into her bones. She looked at Hank and the children, realizing that the unexpected kindness of one person could change everything. "Thank you," Mira whispered, her voice soft. "You've given us hope tonight. I don't know how to repay you." Hank shook his head gently. "You don't have to repay me," he said. "Just take care of each other and remember what you've learned tonight. Kindness matters, courage matters, and hope matters." The children yawned and rubbed their eyes. Hank helped them settle under the blankets once more. Mira tucked them in carefully, brushing hair from their faces. She watched them slowly drift to sleep, finally peaceful after the terror of the storm. Hank stayed by the stove, checking the fire and keeping the cabin warm. Mira looked around the room, feeling grateful for this unexpected haven. She realized that even in the darkest storms, there could be light, warmth, and hope if someone chose to act with kindness. Outside, the snow continued to fall, but inside the cabin, there was safety. Mira held onto that thought as she rested her own head for a while, listening to the gentle crackle of the fire. The night was long, but for the first time since the blizzard began, she felt hope, peace, and the courage to face the challenges ahead. Morning arrived slowly, breaking through the heavy storm with pale light. The blizzard had not yet fully passed, but the wind had calmed, and the snow no longer fell in thick sheets. Mira stirred under her blankets, careful not to wake her children. Leo and Emma were still asleep, their faces peaceful for the first time since the storm had begun. Mira felt a wave of gratitude toward Hank. If he had not appeared the night before, she did not want to imagine what might have happened. Hank was already up, tending the fire. The warm glow of the stove lit the small cabin, creating a soft and safe atmosphere. He noticed Mira watching him and offered a reassuring smile. "Good morning," he said. "Sleep well." Mira nodded, her voice soft. "A little. Thank you for everything. I don't know what we would have done without you." "You did most of the work yourself," Hank said gently. "You kept your children safe in the blizzard. I just helped a little." Mira shook her head. "No, you did more than a little. You saved us." She paused, thinking of how to continue. "I don't even know how to repay you." Hank waved his hand. "No need to repay me. Just make sure you and your kids stay safe. That's enough." Mira watched as he moved around the cabin, arranging firewood and checking the stove. The children stirred, waking slowly. Leo rubbed his eyes and yawned. "Is it morning already?" he asked, his voice small. Emma clung to her blanket, looking sleepy but comforted by the warmth of the cabin. Hank smiled at them. "Yes, it's morning. You two slept well. That's good. You'll need energy today." Mira helped the children out of bed, wrapping them in warm clothes. Hank had found extra coats and blankets the night before, and they felt snug against the cold morning air. The cabin was small but cozy, with a wooden table, a few chairs, and a stove that had kept them warm all night. After breakfast, Hank suggested they plan the next steps. Mira knew they could not stay in the cabin forever, but she also knew it would be dangerous to go back to their car immediately. The storm had covered the road with snow, and even with the morning light, it would be risky to travel. "Your car is still stranded," Hank said carefully. "The snow is too deep, and the roads are slippery. You won't be able to drive safely until it clears." Mira sighed. "I know. I was hoping we could leave, but I suppose you're right. We need to wait." Hank nodded. "For now, we can focus on getting ready for the journey. Make sure your children are warm, fed, and rested. We'll prepare supplies so you can travel safely when the storm ends." Mira agreed, feeling relief that there was a plan. She helped the children eat breakfast, careful to encourage them without rushing. Hank kept busy, chopping extra firewood and packing small supplies for the trip. He included blankets, extra clothing, and food that would last for the day. While they worked, Mira asked quietly, "Hank, why did you help us? You didn't know us at all." Hank paused and looked at her thoughtfully. "Because it was the right thing to do," he said simply. I've seen what storms can do, and I know what it feels like to be helpless. When you can help someone, you should. That's all there is to it. Mira nodded, impressed by his simplicity and honesty. She had spent so much time worrying and fearing the worst that she had almost forgotten there were people willing to help without expecting anything in return. After breakfast, Hank suggested some small tasks to pass the time while the snow outside began to settle. He taught Leo how to gather kindling safely and how to arrange it near the stove without making a mess. It's important to learn these things, Hank explained. Fire keeps people warm, helps cook food, and can even save lives in cold weather. Leo listened carefully, repeating each step and asking questions. Hank answered patiently, showing him the safest ways to handle tools and wood. Mira watched, feeling proud that her son was learning something useful. She noticed how calm Hank remained, even when Leo made small mistakes. His patience reassured her that her children were not only safe but also being taught important lessons. Meanwhile, Emma helped Mira set the table and organize small items in the cabin. She asked questions about everything she saw, from the books on the shelves to the pictures on the walls. Hank encouraged her curiosity. Everything has a story, he told her. Even the smallest things. If you pay attention, you'll learn a lot about the world. Mira marveled at how natural it felt for her children to interact with Hank. In such a short time, he had become more than a stranger. He was a protector and a teacher, someone they could trust. As the morning passed, Hank began discussing the journey ahead. The road should clear in a few hours, he said. We'll check the car together, and I'll make sure it's safe to drive. In the meantime, it's important you stay rested and fed. You'll need energy when it's time to leave. Mira nodded, appreciating the careful planning. I just want to make sure my children are okay, she said softly. They'll be fine, Hank said firmly. You're a strong mother. And you've been brave already. Trust yourself. The children played quietly while Mira packed a small bag with essentials for the journey. She included extra clothes, snacks, and a few small toys to keep them occupied. Hank helped, showing her how to arrange items so they would be easy to carry and not get lost in the snow. By midday, the storm had eased completely. The snow outside was deep but manageable, and the sun shone faintly through the clouds. Mira stepped outside briefly with Hank to check the car. The tires were buried in snow, but Hank assured her that once they cleared it, it would be safe to drive. We just need some time and careful work, he explained. Don't worry. You'll be able to continue your journey soon. Mira felt a surge of hope. For hours, she had feared that they might be trapped here indefinitely, but now a clear path forward was visible. The warmth of the cabin, the kindness of Hank, and the regained energy of her children gave her the courage to face what was ahead. That evening, Mira and her children sat again by the stove. Hank taught them small games and shared stories from his travels. The children laughed and asked questions, learning new things and forgetting, for a short while, the terror of the blizzard. Mira watched them, her heart full of gratitude. She realized that Hank's kindness had given them more than just safety. It had given them courage, hope, and a sense of normalcy. She knew that when they left the cabin, they would carry that strength with them. As night fell, Mira tucked the children into bed once more. Tomorrow, we continue our journey, she said softly. But tonight, we rest. We are safe. Hank stayed by the stove, keeping the fire strong. Mira looked around the cabin, feeling a quiet gratitude. The storm had tested them, but they had survived, thanks to a stranger who had chosen to act with kindness and patience. Outside, the snow glistened under the pale moonlight, calm after the storm. Inside, there was warmth, hope, and a plan for the journey ahead. Mira knew the path forward would not be easy, but with Hank's guidance and her children's courage, she felt ready to face it. For the first time since the blizzard had begun, Mira allowed herself to believe that they would make it through, not just the storm, but the challenges of the days to come. And she knew that the lessons they had learned in this small cabin, kindness, courage, and hope, would stay with them forever. The morning sun broke through the clouds, turning the snow into sparkling white crystals that reflected every ray of light. The storm that had terrorized the mountain road for days was finally gone. The wind had calmed, and the world outside looked quiet and peaceful. Mira stepped outside with Hank, breathing in the crisp air. Her children, Leo and Emma, ran ahead, leaving small footprints in the soft snow, their laughter ringing like music after the long hours of fear and cold. Hank examined their car carefully. The tires had been buried in deep snow, but the engine was intact. "With a little work, it will run," he said. "You'll be able to continue your journey today. Just take it slow, and be careful on the icy roads." Myra's heart leapt. The thought of moving forward, leaving the mountain behind, gave her courage she hadn't felt in days. "Thank you, Hank," she said softly. "I don't know how to repay you for everything you have done." Hank shook his head with a gentle smile. "You don't have to repay me. Just take care of your children, and remember what you've learned here. Trust people when they show kindness, and always help those who need it." Mira nodded, feeling the weight of gratitude in her chest. She hugged her children close, feeling their warmth and energy. They had survived a terrifying blizzard, and now they had a chance to continue on safely. Hank handed them a small bag filled with extra blankets, food, and supplies for the road. "This will help you along the way," he said. "It's just a little something to make the journey easier." Leo looked at Hank, wide-eyed. "Will we see you again?" he asked. Hank knelt down to his level. "Maybe someday," he said. "But for now, remember what matters most: family, courage, and kindness. You have all of that inside you. Keep it with you always." Emma, clutching her stuffed bear, smiled shyly. "Thank you for keeping us safe," she whispered. Hank ruffled her hair gently. "You're welcome, Emma. You two were very brave. I am proud of you." Mira carefully helped the children into the car, making sure they were warm and comfortable. Hank started clearing the snow around the tires and showed Mira how to carefully maneuver on the icy patches. The mountain road would still be tricky, but she now felt ready to face it. Before leaving, Mira turned back to Hank. "You really saved our lives," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I will never forget your kindness." Hank smiled warmly. "I don't need you to remember me forever. Just remember that you survived, and you survived together. That is the most important thing." The engine roared to life, and Mira began to drive slowly down the mountain road. The tires crunched against the snow, and her children watched the world outside with renewed curiosity. Leo pointed at the sparkling trees. "It's so beautiful," he said. Emma pressed her face to the window, smiling as the sunlight reflected on the snow. Mira glanced in the rearview mirror, seeing Hank standing at the edge of his cabin. He waved, a figure of safety and kindness in the distance. She felt a wave of gratitude and hope. Even though she did not know when they would meet again, she knew that someone like him existed in the world, someone who would appear when most needed. The drive down the mountain was slow and careful. Mira followed Hank's instructions, avoiding icy patches and keeping her speed low. The children remained calm, lulled by the warmth inside the car and the beauty of the sunlit snow. Mira felt a sense of pride in herself as well. She had faced fear, protected her children, and survived a storm that could have ended badly. After some time, the road widened and the snow became less deep. Mira could see houses and other travelers in the distance, proof that the world beyond the mountain had returned to normal. The relief she felt was almost overwhelming. She realized how lucky they had been, not only to survive the blizzard but to meet someone like Hank. Leo spoke quietly, almost to himself. "I hope he's okay," he said. Mira smiled, her heart full. "He will be, Leo. And we'll be okay too. We are together, and we are strong. That is what matters." Emma, still looking out the window, added softly, "I liked him. He's nice." "Yes," Mira agreed. "He's very kind. And I hope we can be kind like him too, one day." The journey continued, and the world slowly returned to life. Trees glistened with melting snow, and small streams ran beside the road, the water clear and cold. Mira felt a sense of peace that had been missing for so long. She realized that even when life seemed harsh and unkind, there were moments of light, moments when help could appear unexpectedly. As they reached the base of the mountain, Myra's thoughts returned to the past few days. The fear, the exhaustion, and the cold had tested her in ways she had never imagined. But now, with her children safe and the sun shining, she felt stronger. She understood that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to keep going despite it. Leo leaned against his mother, sleepy but happy. "I'm glad we're safe," he said. Emma nodded, her small hand in Myra's. "Me too," she said. Mira hugged them both tightly. "I'm glad too," she said softly. "We survived because we stayed together. And we will continue to be safe because we are brave and careful." The children laughed quietly, the sound bright and full of life. Mira looked around, noticing the beauty of the world after the storm. Snow still covered parts of the ground, but the sun reflected off it in sparkling patterns. Birds flew overhead, chirping and moving through the clear sky. The world felt alive again, and Mira felt ready to face whatever came next. As they drove into the valley, Mira realized how much she had learned from Hank. He had taught them patience, courage, and the importance of kindness. She knew that these lessons would stay with them forever, shaping the way they lived and treated others. Eventually, they reached a small town at the base of the mountain. People walked along the streets, smiling and going about their daily lives. Mira felt a sense of relief and excitement. The road ahead would have its challenges, but they had already survived one of the hardest tests. Now they had hope, warmth, and each other. Before leaving the snowy mountains behind completely, Mira took one last look at the rising sun and the sparkling snow. She thought of Hank and how he had appeared at the right time. She whispered a quiet thanks, feeling that his kindness had changed their lives forever. "Come on, children," she said gently. "We have a new day ahead. We survived the storm, and now we can make new memories. Together, we are strong." Leo and Emma smiled, their faces bright and full of energy. They held their mother's hands tightly, ready to continue the journey with courage and hope. Mira started the car and drove forward, leaving the mountains behind. She felt the warmth of the sun, the laughter of her children, and the lessons of kindness and courage embedded in her heart. Life would continue to bring challenges, but she knew they would face them together, with strength, love, and hope. And in the distance, on the edge of the mountain, Hank watched them disappear down the road. He waved once more, a quiet guardian who had appeared when they needed help most. He turned back to his cabin, knowing he had made a difference, and that sometimes, that was all that mattered. Mira looked ahead at the open road, feeling a sense of freedom and safety she had not felt in months. The blizzard was behind them, and the future stretched ahead, bright and full of possibilities. She knew now that even in the darkest storms, hope could be found, and kindness could appear when least expected. Together, Mira and her children drove toward their new beginning, their hearts full of courage, gratitude, and the knowledge that they were never truly alone.